This next section is kind of one additional step compared to what we were doing before. So section 3, you always had like just x squared plus or minus some number of x's, then plus or minus some number. So maybe I should have like a plus or minus there. But so that's what you were doing. Now what we're doing is now you'll have problems like this, where you have like a 6x squared or a 5x squared. The place where it's a little bit more complex is that there's more options for combinations. But if you can do section 3 well, if you can figure out the combinations, then it just adds one more layer to it, and I think you'll be good. So if you're still struggling with section 3 where it's always 1x squared, let's talk. But I want to first start out by kind of what we did in the other section and say, well, if I would take this here, the 2x times the 3x, when I FOIL those give me the 6x squared. Agreed?
Yeah.
So the 6x squared, when we FOIL our original problem right there, the f in FOIL, the first times the first, gives me that first term. Now, if I do the last times the last, maybe go a little lower, so that positive 4 and the negative 5 is what gives me this thing here. Get rid of the very top part. So the L in FOIL is what gives me that minus 20 there at the end. Agreed? And then this plus 2x, just like before, comes from multiplying the outside two together, the inside two together, and then combining those to get that middle term. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. So here's the order that I'd recommend trying to figure things out. So as long as you understand that, jump down here. So first, I would just figure out the signs. So like what we did in section 3, we look at this sign here and this sign here, and then that tells us what the signs need to be inside our binomials. So that's section 1. Once you have that done, then you go to factor combinations for A. Where next, before in section 3, we looked at, well, what do these need to be to give me this number? Well, I would start with this number when we have something there. And figure out, okay, so if I have a 6, I could do a 2 and a 3, or I could do a 1 and a 6, that sort of thing. Once you have that figured out then, possibilities for A, then factor combinations for C. So then start looking at, well, what are my options for getting this 20? 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. And once you have that done, then and only then would I try to figure out your placements for each factor. For each factor. Then I try to figure out what numbers do you put like in front with the x, and then what numbers go here. Because it's possible you'll have multiple combinations to try. So started with this here, and I tried giving 4 examples, kind of starting with a little bit easier and kind of progressively getting to the ones that give you more options, more to kind of wade through. And for me, we always started out with like multiplying like a couple binomials to get that. So even though it's maybe kind of weird, I'm going to kind of work to the left. Because I'm used to seeing, well, a binomial times a binomial gives me this trinomial. So that's kind of why I'm sticking it there. But you're welcome to do it the other way in the homework, especially if you want. All right, so if we look for this, first, let's do number 1. What about the signs? If I have a plus here and a plus here, I know my signs need to be plus and a plus. There's 2 options. I heard a minus minus from somebody, but if I had a minus and a minus, that would give me a plus here, but it also would give me a minus some number of x's. So it has to be plus plus. That's the only combination that a positive times a positive gives me the positive number here. And outside would give me a positive number of x. Inside would give me a positive number of x. So I'll get a positive number of x's. Good? All right. Then we start out with step 2, factor combinations for A. If I have a 3x squared, my only options here and here are 1 and 3. Agreed? If we had something with multiple options, like down here, I would probably wait to write the numbers in. But because it has to be a 1 and a 3 to get 3, I'm going to put in x and a 3x. Also, because I have like a plus and a plus, it doesn't matter which one goes where. If one of these was a minus, we'll get to that soon, then maybe it matters where the 3x is, so you might want to wait. All right, factor combinations for C. So what times what gets me my 4? 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. So those are my combinations. So now we need to figure out, well, what could those be? Could it be like 1 and 4 here? Or I wouldn't write all this, but it could be 1 and 4 there. It could be 4 and 1, like in that order. Or it could be 2 and 2. Good? And some people they just start guessing and checking. I'd encourage you to try to be a little strategic about it. It could save you a lot of time. And what I do is I look at this number. I have a lot of x's there, right? So if I have a lot of x's, is it more likely probably we'll have a 2 and a 2 or a 1 and a 4? I'm going to argue 1 and 4. And I could be wrong. I haven't looked at my answer yet. But where could I put my 4 on the first or the second that would give me the most x's?
Second.
I heard second. If I put the second here, I'm going to get positive 4x, agreed? And then here I get a positive 3x. So that's going to give me 7 x's. So that's good. But if I put my 4 here, now do you agree I'm multiplying 4 times 3, the biggest one times the biggest one? And right now I have 12 x's. Then this would have to be a 1, which gives me another 1x. 12x, maybe I should say positive 12x, and positive 1x gives me
13x.
Cha-ching! We got it. Yes? So a lot of times I'll look at that number. Is it big? Is it small? And then it kind of gives me where to start putting numbers in, as opposed to just like throwing numbers in, try it, nope. Throw numbers in, try it, nope. Throw numbers in, try it. You'll start to hate your life real quickly if you approach them that way. Any questions on number 1? Please, if it's fuzzy, ask before we get to something that adds another little layer of complexity. We're good? Okay. Then this next one, I'm going to, again, kind of work to the left. So I have a binomial times a binomial. Binomial will give me this trinomial. All right, so now if we look at this, first signs. What do my signs have to be? Plus, minus, or minus, plus. It doesn't matter at this point. But to get a minus sign there, we have to multiply a positive and a negative. So most people doing plus minus or minus plus? Okay, I'll do plus minus. But again, you could do minus plus. That's fine. Now what's a little bit tougher about this one perhaps is with this 4. So step 2, figure out factors for this. There's not just one combination like we had with the 3 up above. With this, it could be a 1 and a 4, or it could be a 2 and a 2. So now there's 2 options for where we put things with x's. If we go over here to the 6, it could be 1 and or 2 and 3. And we also have, it'll matter what goes with the positive, what goes with the negative. So there's kind of a lot of things that could be kind of ugly. I would look at the size of this. We don't have a huge number of x's, right? It's a little bit more negative than positive, but it's pretty close to 0. So do you want to try like the 2 and 2 or the 1 and 4? I'd probably try the 2 and 2. And here's where I'm tempted to look at my notes, but I honestly don't know the answer right now. So let's try the 2 and 2 because we want them to kind of cancel out. So then we could put a 2x in the first one and a 2x in the second. Now, if we need to have more negatives than positives, but it's pretty close to 0, do you want to go 2, 3 still or 1 and 6? I'm thinking 2, 3, right? But where could we put the 3, the bigger one, to give me a few more negatives? Does the 3 go here in the first or there in the second? Second. So if you put the 3 in here, then the 2 would have to go here. And now you just try it. The outside gives me a minus 6x. The inside gives me a plus 4x. We hope like crazy we get a minus 2x. And we do, right? So we're done. This is the answer. I'm kind of wishing I'd looked at my notes. I probably should look and see, did I want to try to do it the wrong way first? At some point we should do it wrong so you see what it looks like. But if maybe don't write this down and maybe it'll just confuse you. But say we started with the 2x and the 2x. If we tried it the other way, so say we'd put the 2 here and the 3 there. Now when you do outside, you get minus 4x. You inside, you get a plus 6x. So now we have a positive 2x. So it doesn't work, right? They don't match up. But when you see that here's a positive 2 and here's a negative, that's where you think, oh, don't totally start over. What could you switch to just change the sign? And then often that'll be like, oh, if I put the smaller one over here, the bigger one over there, will that just flip the sign from positive 2x to negative 2x? So I should just move on. We okay on those? All right, then our next one. Ooh, okay. So a lot of this is this. Nope, it's not all the same, is it? Bummer. All right. Signs. I have a minus there. I know I need a plus minus, right? Or a minus plus. Has to be one of those two. Now, when I go to the middle, oh, I guess, no, we should go to the 4. So when I look at the 4, we could have 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. When I look at my 6, it's the same exact thing. I could have 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. Now if I go to my middle, I get this plus 23x. So quite large, right? And some of you might actually be looking at some of these numbers. How could these numbers here combine to get me a 23? So after you've done a bunch of these, you start to see patterns and stuff. But I want to have a really big thing here. So what do you think? 1 and 4, 2 and 2? 1 and... Let's try the... I'd try the 1 and 4. Where do we want the 4 if we need to get a positive 23x? Do we want it over here or over here? Okay, so if we try that, so if we put a 4x here, and this one's just going to be an x. Now, should we go for the 1 and 6 also to help us get a big number of... Okay, so where do I put the 6? First one, second one? If I go second, I'm going to get a minus 6 times 4. That's going to be a lot of negatives, right? That's negative 24 if I put it there. So then I have negative 24x. So let's avoid that one. But if we put it here, then this has to be a 1. Now if we try it, outside is minus 4x, inside plus 6x. Ooh, those almost cancel out, right? So we get a positive 2x.
Isn't the 4x has to be on the other side?
Yeah. You guys guessed wrong way back at, I shouldn't say way back at the beginning, but a while ago.
I can tell
By my tone? I'm trying to have a poker face here. So this here, oh, bummer. Okay, the 4x, when you put the 4x here, do you agree you're doing a negative number times the 4x? So that's going to give us a whole bunch of negatives. So the 4x actually has to go in the other spot. So we want the 4x here. Even though it's paired with the minus, when we do the inside, we're going to get a big number of positives. So 4x there and a 1x there. Now where should we put the 6? Perfect. So if we put the 6 here in the first one. Now that inside part, do you agree that's going to give me a plus 24x?
Yeah.
So we're only off by 1. We're 1 too high from where we want to be. But when we put the 1 in here for the pair, the 1 and 6 pair, now I get a minus 1x for a total of positive 23x. So that matches up, and we are done.
No, there's not anything.
Well, we're done with that one. But all right, do the last one real quick. But are you good? All right, last one. Looks like we're running. Okay, let's see if we can do this in the last couple minutes. The book will give you a lot like this here, because the 5x squared, you know it has to be a 1 and a 5. Agreed? Those are nice. Those are nice. So should we just, oh, I'm doing the wrong order. If we have a plus here and a minus there, minus, minus. And so we have a 1 and a 5. Maybe let's do this. The third step was factor the 21. So we could do a 1 and 21. 2 doesn't work. We could do a 3 and a 7. 4 doesn't work. 5 doesn't work. 6 doesn't work. Okay, so nice. We only have 2 combinations there. Does it matter where I put, so I'm going back to here. Does it matter where I put my 1x and my 5x? No. Nope. If they're both minus, doesn't make a lick of difference. So which one do you want first?
The 5 1.
So we'll just put the x there. That's what I heard from most people. And 5x there. But it doesn't matter. You could do it in the other order. Totally fine. And now we just need to decide if we want a minus 22. What do you think? 1 and 21 or 3 and 7? Yeah, because if you put the 21 in there, that's probably going to be too big or too small. Okay, if we try the 3 and 7, where do we want to put the 3? Where do we want to put the 7?
The 3 in the first.
Okay, if we try the 3 in the first, because that's going to give me minus 15, right? So we need 7 more to get to this minus 22. And if we put the 7 there, because 3 times 7 is 21, that gives me a minus 7x. So combine those, perfect. We get a minus 22x.
Wouldn't it work the other way too?
The other way, like switching the 3 and the 7?
No. 1 and 21.
You could try it. I'll maybe try it down here. So if I have my x minus and my 5x minus, I think we're going to be a little too close to 0 on that one, because if I did my 21 here, I'm guessing you're thinking, and the 1, I'd have minus 5x and minus 21x. We'd have a minus 26x. So it doesn't work out that way. Yeah. So we're close, but...
Fastest joke in a minute.
Last